Today we're going to be talking about the men who took rappers' lives. In this episode we're going to be doing Xxx Tentacion, Tupac Shakur and Pop Smoke. Let's get straight into it. Xxx Tentacion passed away on the 18th of June 2018 in Florida. We'll talk about the multiple people involved with his death. First, Dedrick Williams. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery with a firearm. He actually appeared in front of the judge as well, which was streamed, and Williams made his first appearance, and they actually had denied his bond because they had a substantial amount of evidence to prosecute him for the involvement in Xxx's passing. Dedrick Williams is actually struggling in jail, and he even begged the judge because of COVID to let him free as they await trial and fully get their sentencing. It was released on TMZ, the full letter he posted to the judge. Robert Allen was also identified as a person of interest, as CCTV would show him around that area in surveillance footage of the motorbike shop that day where Xxx's life was taken. Michael Boatwright was arrested for drug and violation of probation charges, leading to an arrest warrant for his first-degree murder. These are the men involved in the incident in the end, and a grand jury indicted 4 men for first-degree murder and armed robbery offences. Certain reports suggest these group of men's plan was just to rob Xxx, but because he refused, they ended up taking his life in order to rob him. If so, that is true, it's very sad to think that X would still be alive if he just handed over his stuff. Their main objective was most likely just to try to get the money off him, because it shows in CCTV after that they followed him in there and knew he had that money on him to try and buy something from the motorbike shop, and they was targeting and tracking him.
Allen and Michael Boatwright appeared in court today. Boatwright's defense argued that competency has not been decided for his client just yet. In chilling surveillance video, you see Xxx Tentacion walking into Riva Motorsports with a Louis Vuitton bag. This was back on June 18th.
He learned he had gone to the bank up in Coral Springs, Parkland area and had withdrawn $50,000.
Soon after they walked in, you then see a Dodge Journey pull up in the parking lot. Detectives say 4 people were in that truck. You then see Allen get out with Dedrick Williams. They enter Riva, walking right past Xxx Tentacion. Some time goes by and the two exit ahead of X. They stay parked in that street for 10 minutes. And then just as X leaves, the Dodge blocks him in.
As he comes to the gate to leave, before he can even make his turn, he's going to get cut off by the suspect vehicle.
Boatwright and Newsome rob X at gunpoint, while Allen and Williams wait inside the SUV.
Rest in peace to Xxx. Really one of the most talented and inspirational rappers we had in the last decade or so in particular, and didn't deserve his life to be taken so young. Tupac Shakur passed away on the 13th of September 1996 in Las Vegas, and the man behind it was Orlando Anderson. Now basically, Tupac was out to watch a Mike Tyson fight.
Tyson really could not have answered them in a more emphatic manner than he has done in the ring at the MGM Grand Garden in Las Vegas tonight.
After he was celebrating the win in Las Vegas, and he see a rival gang member of a friend of his. He went over, approached him, they got into a brawl, and this guy would want revenge on Tupac later that night. And that guy that was jumped was Orlando Anderson, and he even denied on television that he had took Tupac's life, but after his passing, it was found out.
I mean, first of all, you know what I mean, I didn't kill Tupac Shakur.
You hear that Tupac was shot, and where did you hear?
When I heard that Tupac was shot, when I was at home.
Okay, now we have our first definite lie. Because we've already established that home is somewhere in California and that he was in Las Vegas at the time.
May 29th, 1998, Anderson died at Martin Luther King Jr.'s hospital in California after he was shot during a gang-related shootout. Orlando Anderson, once named by police as a suspect in the Las Vegas slaying of rap star Tupac Shakur, was killed on a Friday in a gang shootout in Compton that also claimed the life of another man, sources close to the case said. Police withheld formal identification of the victims, saying that the next of kin had yet to be identified. Officers said only 2 men were dead, a 3rd man was in critical condition, and a 4th who was treated for gunshot wounds had been booked on suspicion of murder. Anderson, whose grandmother had died of natural causes earlier that day, told friends about 2 p.m. that he was going to the store. A few minutes later, he left his home in Compton and drove off with friends, the sources said. About 3:10 p.m, Anderson and another man, both believed to be members of the Southside Crips, drove up to a car wash where several members of a rival gang had gathered, police said. There was an altercation and he ended up losing his life after being shot at. After a man named Keefe D, who was related to Orlando Anderson and was with him in the car when he shot at Tupac on that night, told the police everything that happened, and that was him that pulled the trigger on Tupac to try and get revenge of what happened to him in that casino, which actually makes sense on the story.
In civil court. They claim there is evidence he was in the white Cadillac that night in Las Vegas, that he got out and fired the shots.
From 1995 to date, have you ever ridden in a white Cadillac?
No.
Do you know anyone who owns a white Cadillac?
No.
Anderson, an alleged Los Angeles gang member, has vigorously denied any involvement in the murder and in depositions claimed he was not at the scene.
Tupac's case is one of the most dragged on cases ever, and I do believe the Orlando Anderson story is the one that makes the most sense on what happened, but there's still a lot of conspiracy theories, understandably. Pop Smoke's life was taken on the 19th of February 2020. Pop Smoke was gunned down by a 15-year-old shooter who ambushed the Brooklyn rapper in his Los Angeles home last year with a group of teens that set out to steal his diamond-studded Rolex, the detectives testified on Friday. The triggered scene, the youngest of the 4 defendants now facing an M and robbery charges in the case, allegedly admitted his role in slaying during a recorded interview with a cellmate at a juvenile detention center last May. The 15-year-old alleged shooter admitted that they asked for jewelry and that they had a confrontation with Pop Smoke during the 4 a.m. home invasion on February 19th, 2020, the detective said. The police are actually being very smart. They're putting informants in the suspects' cells and getting them to tell them what they've done. You're thinking you're just in a cell with someone you could talk about an incident and brag about what happened with Pop Smoke probably, and you're actually snitching yourself up and you don't even realize that's how they found out the information on what the 15-year-old done. So of course these teens broke into Pop Smoke's house to attempt to rob him. It was said, but the rapper Pop Smoke decided to fight back and rush the intruders who pistol whipped him before the 15-year-old suspect shot him in the chest. There's 2 crazy situations here. One, if Pop Smoke possibly didn't act so aggressively and hand his stuff over because he was outnumbered and they had weapons, he could still be alive right now. We don't know if their intention was definitely to take his life or just that they got into an altercation and it went too far. And secondly, it was a 15-year-old behind the trigger, which is absolutely crazy. We know they start young in America, but not this young. A 15-year-old took Pop Smoke's life is what I'm hearing. That is absolutely crazy. In a recent video I described more details of what happened in the Pop Smoke case, how the intruders broke in while he was in the shower and there was a girl in his room that they held at gunpoint. I'm shocked now to find out this is carried out by teenagers and the youngest out of them being 15, and he was actually the one pulling the trigger. It is crazy and taking an absolute legend's life. I'll update you guys on what happens with the trial and how long these people all get. They took an absolute legend's life. There's no justice that can be served, but I'll tell you guys and update you on the trial. It's just really sad to think they was only trying to take a Rolex off of Pop Smoke. His life was worth so much more than that, but him being a gangster stood his ground against multiple people breaking into his home. Rest in peace to Pop Smoke. This guy's one of the pioneers of drill, and on his last album showed how talented he was. This guy was going to be the next Drake, and even bigger. I preferred him to Drake. Rest in peace to Pop Smoke. Guys, thank you all for watching this video. As always, make sure you subscribe and press that notification bell to be updated on my next videos, and follow me on Instagram at Fesify. Drop me a message, feel free. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.